I've been a family financial advisor for over 20 years now. And hopefully the more you do something, the better you get at it. And what used to seem complex to you, you now have clarity and you can see, you know what, it's not as complex as I thought. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you Azul's 3 rules for becoming wealthy. And you know what, it's not as complicated as what many people think. Okay, rule number 1, I don't care how much money you earn, you have to spend less than what you earn. And it's crazy how many people make $100,000 a year, $150,000, $250,000 a year, and they don't save a dime. In fact, in the United States, over half of the people making over $100,000 a year are in that situation. They're not saving anything. So no matter how much you earn, you need to save. But you know what? It's not enough to save. You also need to invest. And the reason you need to invest is you've heard the saying that compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, right? You put money in an investment, it grows. And before you know it, over time, your investments are working harder for you than what you're doing, commuting down to work, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. As that balance grows, that it starts producing money for you faster than you can actually put new money in. And that's what we're all working towards. But you know what? That compounding works both ways. The evil cousin of compounding is when you earn less than the rate of inflation. Then every year, your money is taking more money away from you as opposed to putting money in. So you have to invest it. And sometimes people think, you know, the lowest risk investment that I can make is to put my money in the bank. And most of the time, the rate that you earn at a bank is going to be lower than the rate of inflation. So you're actually going backwards every year. So even though the stock market volatility may seem a little scary, you know, you see on the news, the market's up today, the market's down tomorrow, you know, the market's hitting an all-time new high. You know, there's something scary going on and the market's at an all-time, not at an all-time low, I guess that would be 0. But, you know, the market's down 20% from its all-time high or something like that. You know, is that risk? Or is risk the likelihood of not achieving your goal? Yes, the nightly news and the market going up and down is scary. But I would argue it's not the noise of the volatility in the market, and that's just a feature of the stock market. It's not a bug. But I would argue that by trying to avoid that volatility, many people are actually increasing their risk, even though the likelihood of them not receiving back their initial investment is very, very low, right? A bank account. If you're not beating inflation, you're being hurt. So that's rule number 1. You need to, no matter how much you make, you need to spend less than what you earn. And you need to, it's not enough to save, you also need to invest it. Okay, the next one. The next one, and these are going to get a little more controversial, and stick around to the end here because I'm going to toss in some bonus ones for you too. Some really powerful ones that after 2.5 decades of doing this, things that I've picked up that really move the needle for you. But let's stick with the basics. The thumbnail had Azul's 3 rules. So my second rule is 1 house. You know, as people start to generate income, they think about, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a house in a ski town or at a beach town? And I am all about optimizing on life. But, you know, having a home can be expensive. In your primary home, you know, absolutely. You know, we need shelter, right? We don't need a 5,000 square foot shelter, but we need shelter. But, you know, most of us, if we're just going to use the house for vacation and we're hoping that we're going to be able to rent it out to other vacationers and we're going to make a profit on that. You know, most money in vacation rentals are made on the property appreciation, or is lost on the depreciation of it, right? And so the last 7 or 8 years, there's been a lot of appreciation. If you talk to a realtor when you're on vacation, guess what your realtor is going to tell you? Oh yeah, this market's going to the moon, right? They're not going to tell you, I think we're ahead of ourselves. I think we're in for a 10% correction. They're in the business of selling homes. So just be careful, particularly now that we've had such a strong run in real estate. I'm not a real estate expert. I wish I had a crystal ball. I had a crystal ball a couple years ago, but it dropped and cracked. So you're stuck with just me. But you know, I can't forecast the future. So I don't know what's going to happen. But for most people, we're better served one house. And then the third rule, and this is going to get controversial. I've taken some heat on mentioning this, and people have said, hey, you know, Azul, I'd like you to quit mentioning this, but I think it's important. You know, the number one destroyer of wealth. You know, I kind of tease people about buying new cars. I do think, and that's not what I'm going to talk about here, but I do think that that's the least sacrificial way to save more money, and it can be a destroyer of wealth. But the number one destroyer of wealth, it's going to cut your accounts probably in half, is getting a divorce. So the third rule is one spouse, if you can make it work, right? Unfortunately, every marriage is not designed to last, and you have to be happy, right? We have one life to live, and if you're not happy, you know, that's super important as well. But if you're in a relationship that's had its ups and downs, and you're thinking, I don't want to invest in this relationship anymore, you know, I would just encourage you to invest in it all the way to the end. And what I mean by that is, you know, be open to doing therapy, maybe be open, you know, be proactive. That's the best thing to do, is be proactive and do date night and invest not just money, but also time. And that's really what's important if you're married to your spouse, is spending quality time together and feeling like the other person is super important in your life as well. So just like I think it's worthwhile investing in quality companies and quality stocks and quality dividend paying firms and quality bonds, I also think it's worth investing in a quality relationship. So that's the third one. As I said, I've got more, so let's keep going. But let me just wrap up my little saying that I like to do with this, which is, you know, the first one, no matter how much you earn, you got to spend less than what you earn. And it's not enough to save, you also have to invest. And then one house and one spouse. So those are my top three rules. But what are some close ones behind it that I think is really going to make a difference? And the first one is be really thoughtful and deliberate about your asset allocation. Your asset allocation is what percent of your investments are in stocks and bonds, real estate, etc. Because you know what? That's going to determine 80% of your returns. It's just that decision right there. And none of what I'm saying in today's video is financial advice specifically for you, right? Don't take financial advice from some guy on YouTube. But what I want to do is not give you financial advice, but give you things to think about. And then I encourage you to work with a fee-only financial advisor. You can find one just by Googling that term. But asset allocation is such an important piece of success that I really want you to think about working with a professional on that. Really nail that down. And just a word of caution, as you get older, particularly once you're no longer bringing in a paycheck, once there's no longer new money in, what I have seen almost universally is stock market volatility, scary things in the stock market, scary things with your investments just feel more painful. So even though you've been 70%, 80% stocks or 50% stocks your whole life, and you've always felt comfortable with the ups and downs, you may find yourself in a very different situation later on. So that's just something there. The next thing that I think is really important is, and I'm going to borrow this from Stephen Covey, from his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. When it comes to your investments, I want you to begin with the end in mind. So, you know, think about, okay, you're 40, you're 50, you're 55 now. Where do you want those accounts to be when you're retired, when you're 60, when you're 65 and 70? And what I mean by this is, do you really want to have all of your money in a 401k or an IRA where every dollar you take out is going to be classified as ordinary income? You're going to have to pay tax on it. right? So the joke is, when you go to the grocery store and you buy a gallon of milk, you're going to have to pay income tax on that. You don't want to be in that situation. So have some money in a regular IRA, regular accounts, have some money in a Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, and have some money in just a taxable account like your bank account, okay? Another really important tool is, or concept is, simple is more powerful than complex. When it comes to investments, a lot of people get sold these complex tools, these complex investments. And you know what? The basics are going to do very, very well for the vast majority of people. You don't have to get crazy complicated and buy, illiquid partnerships and things like that. You may do well, but, probably if you and I can access those, people that do really well in those fields, they have pension funds, they have state retirement systems that are investing in them, they have insurance companies that are investing in them. And so the very best people at doing things like that, venture capital firms, private equity firms, even silly things like, buying lumber directly. Those are all things that these endowments, these big institutional players do. But for you and I, we probably don't have access to the best people doing those things. So simple is better than complex. It can kind of stroke our ego if we can understand something that's complex, but underlying each of these complex tools are the fundamentals, which oftentimes is just basic stocks and bonds. So I'd encourage you to avoid the fees with those complex strategies. Complex strategies are designed to be sold to you because they offer big commissions to the salesman or the financial advisor. And I say in quotes because I think all financial advisors should be fiduciaries to their clients 100% of the time. And if you're not a fiduciary to your client 100% of the time, and you're in my field, you are wearing a sales hat some of the time. So are you really a financial advisor? Do you truly have your client's best interest in mind? For some people, absolutely. But for others, the lure of those high commissions with complex tools, and some of them pay 7, 8, 9%. So if you put $100,000 in investment like that, the person talking to you about it is going to make 7, 8, maybe 10,000, maybe even more for getting you to invest in that tool. So, they have an incentive to not tell you all of the negatives. They have an incentive. I'm not saying they do it, but they have an incentive to tell you the positives. And then I want to close with health is more important than wealth. Health is greater than wealth. So everything we've talked about here is about our money, but I want you to keep your heart strong. I want you to keep your body strong. I want you to go to the gym, do what you can to stay healthy, eat healthy. And along those lines, I want you to watch this video here, which is 7 things to think about stop doing in your 50s and 60s so you enjoy the journey more. I'll see you in that video. Bye-bye.